good about any of those songs made it to the record somewhere, you know.
Yeah. Braucht ihr noch so eine Zusammenfassung auf Deutsch oder habt ihr soweit?
Nein.
Ja? Okay. Hat jemand eine Frage noch? Ja.
Hi guys. Yeah, congrats first of all on the album. It's so good. It's amazing, and we're very happy to be here and listen to it and talk to you guys. And basically now that we've heard it, I was wondering if there was one song or maybe a couple of songs that you're most excited to play live. Sure.
I'm terrified to play half this record because a lot of it is vocally very, very difficult. So, so I don't. For my part, I'm like, oh man, I really painted myself in a corner there. I have to do that every night.
Well, actually, I wondered about if you're sometimes afraid when you record those songs, if you are able to play them in a live setting, because I mean you still are on stage as a rock band, but there's so much programming and so much synthesizers and laptops and whatnot involved on the record, different producers. Are you sometimes afraid that you can reproduce it, that you can't reproduce it on stage?
So when we did Save Rock and Roll, Butch Walker, I was in the vocal booth and Butch Walker, we were doing Light 'Em Up, and there's that, you know, that note, and it really, you know, it's something that I've had to like practice years now to like get comfortably every night. But that day I was like, I can't do this, man. I can't. He's like, you can do it once. You can do it in the studio right now. And so you know, he's like, just get it right now, and then you'll figure out how to do it live. And that was so antithetical to the way I think about working, but it was kind of exciting. It was kind of a new challenge, and so I think going forward, that's been kind of a cool thing. I was thinking about I was looking at Queen. If you ever heard Queen's live record, it's crazy because like they can't. I mean, all of those songs were so studio songs, you know. So for them to try and go and play Bohemian Rhapsody live was real crazy. And I feel like that's the thing, is that like it's kind of a challenge, you know. So I'm worried about it, but I'm also like, but that's like kind of part of the fun, is like is figuring out how to make something work on stage versus, you know.
Okay.
But it's scary.
Thank you. So, yeah, thanks for being here. As for me, I would like to know if there's any special artist or band that your album was influenced by. Because as for me, I think that the new album is a little different from the ones that you released before, and which isn't bad, but it seems to me that it's kind of maybe it's a little less rock and a little bit influenced by other genres like gospel, or I don't know. It seemed to me like you had a little bit of dubstep in it. I don't know what made you do this.
Whenever you put, you know it's bad whenever you need to put the qualifier on there.
Very interesting.
Now I don't hate you, but I think that the interesting thing for us is that's a great question, by the way. I think that so we've been a band for, you know, like, or been doing this for, you know, 15 or 16 years, and we've always had to kind of like move it forward. You know, we decided, I think, after Take This to Your Grave, that the next one was just going to be different, and sometimes that's been a lot. You know, I remember we were sitting in the studio and we were playing this song we have called Arms Race. We were playing it for our A&R label, and he was like, well, that's the end of your career at radio. And I was like, wow, that's, you know, and so we've always progressed. I think that the thing that was different is that in the time that we took a break, which was 3 or 4 years, music changed so much, and the internet and the way people make music and the way people listen to music changed so much, you know? So it was more like being gone for 8 years or something like that. And so we had to adapt and figure out how are we, because it's important to us that we're able to come to Berlin and that we're able to play music for so many people, and we're able to be a band that, like, you know, like when you're growing up, or when we were growing up, and we were like, oh yeah, like there's all these bands that don't really, and artists that don't make sense for us, but like Metallica or Green Day or whatever, like these bands that do, you know, and it's cool to see them in the mainstream. And so we've always tried to be a band that can be that for people and be inclusive like that for people, but we had to figure out how to adapt, and that means adapting sonically. And so there's elements of Fall Out Boy, but what we did was we did, I'm like in a different country and I'm speaking so fast. I'm sorry, I apologize. I'll translate it all into German tonight. What? So we put out 2 records when we came back, and when we put out the second one, we were trying to see if we could function the way rappers and DJs do it and make an album and make art really quickly, like back to back. And so basically those kind of became one record almost, you know, sonically and I think thematically. There's so many similarities, like if you listen to Centuries versus Light 'Em Up, there's so many things that are so close. And so this was a record where, when I heard Young and Menace, I was like, whoa, this is gonna be a weird one. And we were trying to push the ball forward, and talking about inspiration, there's like these Nigerian rappers that I was listening to, Mr. Easy and Burna Boy. One of the guys ended up on a record, but I think that the inspiration is so much can be so much more global now. Like I'm talking to this guy, Burna Boy, on WhatsApp, and I'm like, it's crazy because he's in Nigeria, and it was like the funniest conversation. He was like, man, you better not be fucking with me. I brought Fall Out Boy to Nigeria in 2011. I'm like, wait, what? And it was the coolest way to like create and hear his voice. And like, honestly, I know that like sometimes we expect a lot out of, like, and this is a big reason why we actually made the decision to push our record back, is that if we're going to say that we're going to sonically change and move the ball forward and not repeat ourselves and not do anniversary tours, we always want to make music that we really believe in and that we believe is the best version of Fall Out Boy. Because I don't think you can sit up here and be like, yeah, we made like an okay record, sorry we don't play like the old songs. You know, like that's like bullshit, you know? So that was a big
record, it's fun.
Yeah. That was a big reason why we kind of pushed it forward. But the inspirations came kind of from everywhere, and I'm sure everyone can speak to their own.
I kind of waited around to be inspired, and so there are lots of different things that inspired me. I like a lot of grime, UK grime hip hop, and then like film scores, and then obviously R&B and soul music from the 60s and stuff like that. So it was kind of, I was just waiting for anything to inspire me, and I think that's one of the reasons why it took so long, is because sometimes you have to wait to go like, oh, the thing for me is always I hear something and I hear somebody's song and I go, oh, that was cool, but it should go here instead, you know? And that's kind of where a lot of my writing comes from, is that I almost imagine, where something could have gone instead like someone will there'll be a chord change, and then I go, oh, but your third chord, I don't like that, it should go here, you know? And so I'll hear a song and whatever, and write that way.
I just want to say that it doesn't come as a surprise to me that you now sound like you do, because I think it was obvious after the last couple of records, and you always flirted or started flirting with R&B elements or hip hop elements or I don't know, trap, electronica, whatever. So that you sound like you do sound now is not that much of a surprise. It's maybe just the poppiest thing that you ever did,
which I think is so ironic. I feel like, I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. The pop is so funny though, because I feel like every time we ever do anything, I always feel like it never comes out the way you think it's going to come out. I remember when we played Dance Dance for some of our friends and in other bands and some label people. There was this consensus that they're like, this is real weird. This doesn't make any sense. I don't know why you're doing this. And then we played it for the audience, and everyone's like, oh, this is great. This makes sense, and this is very, I don't know, people will say it's very pop. But at the time, it really wasn't. And it's kind of just funny how those things change, like what what becomes, and, Arms Race is another one where that's like a fairly popular song for us, but when we did it, it was like, why would you ever do this? And so I think that's another thing with the band, is that it would be very difficult for us to put out a record and not have at least a couple of those questions,
And it's wild because it's like the poppiest record, but then like Young and Menace is the first thing we put out from it, and there was people like, I remember playing it for my mom, and she was like, it's very interesting. I don't hate it, but
my stepmom she did not mince words. She pulled me aside and she goes, when we put out Champion after Young and Menace, she goes, Patrick, I like that one better. I didn't like the screechy part.
But Pete, you once stated that if it wasn't for the Get Up Kids, Fall Out Boy wouldn't exist or something. And Patrick, you when you auditioned for Fall Out Boy Summer for the first time, you got out your acoustic guitar and played songs by Saves the Day. So I sometimes not nostalgic about those times and think, well, we should do that. I don't know, old Get Up Kids thing again, or I don't know.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's hard not to. Everyone has their own nostalgia, like whether you look back at like these are the cereals I ate growing up, or like like whatever it is, or like this is the commercial I remember, or this is the music. I always think it's a little strange sometimes when artists go and try to redo that period, because you're like, well, but you have like that was a thing you made in a van, and now you like have a swimming pool, and you're like trying to make the song that you made when you were in the van, but it sounds like an old guy making a song who has a swimming pool and is like, let's make an old song again. So like, for example, we did this record with Ryan Adams called Paxham Days, and it was like, well, why don't we just go make some punk songs that are super fast and we don't think about them a lot, and maybe it'll kind of be like the old ones we did, and like they're cool, and I really like it. It doesn't sound like Take This to Your Grave, or whatever, and I'm like, I feel like if we went back and tried to do it, it would feel like old guys with the swimming pool trying to make the record.
Well, and there's also an element too where I feel like I don't really necessarily feel nostalgic for it, because I feel like it's still kind of a living thing for me. Those songs, we still play a lot of those songs. Like we'll play them next to the songs on this record, which I think that throws people too. A lot of times I don't read reviews anymore, but when I did used to read reviews, that was a criticism that you'd hear is like, oh, they don't play any of the old songs anymore. And I'm like, well, yeah, you just haven't seen us, because we play old songs every night. It's not, it's not so much that was a thing that we did and we left it in the past. We still play those songs. I just don't really want to impersonate them, I guess.
There's nothing like it. You guys know Napoleon Dynamite, that movie? You know the uncle in Napoleon Dynamite, and he's like, hold on, let me like throw the football, and he's like throwing it at the camera, he and he's like living as the high school quarterback forever. I don't want to become the band version of that. Uncle Rico.
I was so cool in high school. No, trust me, I was so cool in high school.
Ja. Ich reiche einfach mal an den jungen Herrn da hinten kurz weiter, weil es ist gemein.
So, hey guys, I want to know how was your experience of playing Expensive Mistakes before it was released, and why did you choose that song to play on the Mania tour?
That's a good question.
Why did we choose that song to play? I think that one felt like, so what we did on the Mania tour in the United States, for those who aren't aware, are you guys aware or no? Some of you are aware, some of you are. We had like a platform that went out back to the very back of the arena, and it went up like 30 feet. And we tried to pick a song that maybe, because like these aren't necessarily the best seats, we tried to pick a song that would kind of like rock or move a little bit for people who were back there, since we were getting close to them. And I remember thinking like, well, we're playing this new song that no one knows, and like maybe that'll all go wrong. But then like we just take the stage up 30 feet, and you're like, well, I hope I don't fall off this and fucking die. So you don't worry about the song so much.
And I missed all the rehearsals for that tour. I had like a family emergency thing, so I missed all the rehearsals for that tour. So what ended up happening was literally the first time I'd ever played the song in the context of a show, like the whole band playing it together. The first time I had played it, because I missed the rehearsals. I missed the rehearsals for the playing and for the stage. So literally that night when I'm 40 feet in the air is the first time the first night of the first show, whatever. It's the first time I'm playing it, and I'm like, it was so terrifying because all at once I'm like, well, I hope I remember the words. I hope I don't fall off and die. You know, it was awesome. So.
First of all, hi.
Hi.
And I'm sorry I have to read this from my phone because I'm nervous as hell, and I was gonna make sure I don't forget the question. What do you like to do outside of music but still contributes to your musicality? Like, what rejuvenates your creativity? I would be very interested in that. And also another question I have is, there's already a remix of Champion floating around the internet with a Korean rapper who I personally like, and a lot of fans were freaking out, like, how did that happen? Why is a Korean rapper remixing a song of Fall Out Boy?
Two parts, I guess.
I can answer the second part. I was at my kid had a birthday party at this arcade, and I was looking around trying to avoid 9-year-olds for a minute, and this like giant group of people came like running in, or like a small group of people came running to the arcade, and then like a giant group behind them. I was like, oh, what's that? And they were like, oh, it's the guy from BTS, and he like just has to play Dance Dance Revolution everywhere he goes or something. Really crazy. And there was just like a zillion fans behind him, you know. And I was like, I've never even really heard it, you know. I knew G-Drag and I knew some other stuff, but wasn't super familiar. And I knew CL, but and so we reached out because I was like, what does BTS like? Investigated, and we're like, would he want to do a feature? Would he want to do something? And they were like, yes. He was really specific. He wants to do a remix of Champion, and he's got an idea for it. And we were like, whoa, great. And that was that. And we had no idea, like, to realize that the BTS fans like made it trend on Twitter before it came out was so weird. It's like, they were like, it's wild.
K-pop fans are wild. Everyone. Honestly.
And then to the inspiration stuff, you know, outside of music, that's very difficult for me because I don't really have a lot of hobbies outside of music. They're all different kinds of music. But probably the closest thing I can think of is I try and build guitars or microphones and things like that. And I'm not very good at it, but I do that sometimes, and it's kind of relaxing. I don't know.
I think for me, everything outside of music rejuvenates my love for music. Seeing movies or life, things are pretty crazy right now in the world, so like having music as an outlet in the face of that is obviously cool.
I don't have an answer. I don't know, just live life. Just go through life and get stressed out a lot and take naps. Naps are very true.
That's how it rejuvenates. I'll get you a spa treatment.
I won't go, I don't like getting in touch with other people. I just like to sleep. I'm telling you, get stressed out and then take a nap. It works.
Alter, Justin, das bist du.
Zwei weitere Fragen. Okay. Ich hatte dich gerade schon.
Hi. So I've been listening to Fall Out Boy for like over 13 years, and I just wanted to say that I'm so grateful for your music, and it's just shaped like my life and who I am and my friendships in ways that I couldn't even explain. And even with this new album, listening to it, it kind of feels like coming home, even if the songs you've never heard them before. And I was just wondering if you have like a certain Fall Out Boy song that makes you feel really happy and that just means a lot to you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know. I think I feel like it's kind of tough because you say you end up saying the same answer a bunch of times and it feels like a canned answer, but it's the truth. So I've said this a lot of times. So sorry if you've heard it before, but Dance Dance is very significant for me personally because I feel like that was that's the beginning of who we are. I feel like Take Us to Your Grave was really good. I'm really proud of that record, but I can still hear us like being scared of trying and of just letting ourselves be who we are. And Dance Dance I think was really exciting because it made me want to dance, which that's a very rare thing to for your own music to do. And it was also it wasn't really scared of itself. It was kind of a strange little song, and we still get to play it every night. And so that's I think that's probably the most significant to me because like I'm not naturally an incredibly confident guy, and so to have a song that you were part of that you like is like a really wow, that's a neat thing. So.
Ich mach's mir einfach.
Okay. Hi there. My question is really about the llamas from the album. I would like to know where this idea came from because I'm from Latin America and the llamas in Latin America are really typical and common, but that is why I'm wondering where this idea came from. And talking about that, I don't have a second question, but I have a present for you. I brought a little llama with the purple color for you, and I would be really honored if you could take my present.
Oh, of course, yeah. I thought we were getting a little mini live llama somehow. I don't know where I'm gonna put this. Oh, this is so awesome. Thank you so much. That's so rad. Very, 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 very cool. Ecuador? Yes. Cool. That's awesome. So when we were making the video for Young and Menace, it was inspired by the movie Elf. When in the movie Elf, where he's like, "Wait, I'm not a fucking elf," But we were like, what's the dark version of that? Like where you like wake up one day and you're like, I don't fit in here at all. And so we thought of like creating a world where there are these like monsters, but there's a human in there, and we wanted to do it in the way that like Henson did when we were growing up, like movies like Labyrinth or whatever, and
Dark Crystal.
Yeah, totally, and create like these puppets or whatever, and one of them ended up looking like a llama for some reason. I feel like the monster is like bummed out because he's like, I don't even look like a fucking llama, and everyone calls us the llamas. But yeah, that's where it came from. But we should bring them to South America for sure. Did you come here? You didn't come here for the show, or are you just here in general? Sorry. Follow-up question, second part.
Yes. And I'm planning to go to your concert in Amsterdam with my sister, so she will travel also from Latin America to go to your concert.
Oh wow, thank you, that's awesome. That's
You are our inspiration. So
oh, that's very sweet for you to say, that's awesome. Is there a song that anybody really liked from that you heard today, that you hadn't heard before?
I liked Heaven's Gate, actually.
Ah,
it's my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's weird because sometimes you can like write about other people or a kind of fictionalized version of you, or like this is like the bigger version or whatever it is, and then sometimes it just like when people like entertainment sites write about it, all of a sudden they're writing about this thing and you're like, it's taken completely out of context, like it's not, I didn't see Nikki Sixx, die and come back to life, or whatever, but that kind of thing. So yeah, that can be a little nerve-wracking or whatever.
Well, thanks a lot for doing this and for talking to the fans.
Thank you so much.
Es gibt jetzt noch eine besondere Sache für euch, und zwar wird die Band Fotos mit euch machen. Aber wir sind ein bisschen in Verzug, das heißt, es wäre cool, wenn ihr so freundschaftsmäßig in Grüppchen antretet. Lasst eure Taschen und Jacken einfach hier und dann gehen wir zu